Hello everybody, hope y'all are doing well. Hope that y'all are having a great Monday. Sorry it took me a minute. We're getting things all set up here. And forgive me, I've got a little bit of a congested throat, so some of my voice acting will not be on point, I'm afraid. But we're still going to do our reading as planned. Welcome all of you. If you are new to this, I welcome you to the Ravens Roost. I do this, I try to do this every Monday evening, where we don't play any games, we're not talking about anything like For Honor related or Dead by Daylight related or anything like that. We're just reading stories because I'm a novelist. I like to write stories and books and poems, and I would like to share those with you guys. So these Monday evenings, I like to just kick back, relax, and share the fruits of my labors. We have been reading 4 stories a night, long-running stories. We're in the middle of reading Helping Hands, The Tale of Tomoki, Monster Club, and Reanimated. And when we finish Monster Club, I've decided as a special treat, I will do a live play of the Monster Club video game that was created by me and my friend Hannah. So that will be something fun that we try. So, without further ado, let's get right into it. Now, as usual, I like to supply a picture of the story as we're reading it. So since we're going to start with Helping Hands, let's put a picture of Helping Hands on the screen. First, I gotta go find one. I know I've got one hidden here somewhere. Let's go with this one. I'll shrink it just a little bit. There we go. All right. So, now that we have that up, let's get started. We left off on Helping Hands Chapter 5. Now, I will go ahead and warn you, Helping Hands doesn't have a whole lot of chapters. It only has 13, so we will be done with this pretty quickly. Alright, so, let's get started. Helping Hands Chapter 5. Whispers seemed to circle me like vultures over a carcass. Despite my best efforts, my arms were too easily noticed, and they drew a lot of attention. I remember watching romantic comedies on TV where a woman would tell men to stop staring at her chest and at her face instead. Well, now I wish that they would just stop staring at me, period. I felt like an object on display, a strange art project for all to see. "Hey, you okay?" Logan asked as we both walked into Hicks' dining hall. "I guess," I answered. "I have to get used to this, but it's certainly not easy," Logan shrugged. "It's no different than if we were in a wheelchair, if you had on a cast. People always stare at things that they don't see every day," Logan said. "But when does it stop?" I asked. "It stops when you stop caring," Logan whispered darkly. "Eventually you just need to let it stop eating at you, and you just tell them all to piss off." As we sat down for our supper, I took a moment to take in my surroundings. The dining hall was certainly enormous. There were several different places you could get food, one being a primary food counter, an international food counter, where they fed you food from different cultures. There was a pizza and pasta bar, a salad bar, a deli sandwich line, fountain drink machines at 2 different locations. The place left nothing to be desired, and everything looked and smelled simply delicious. Where there weren't food counters and bars, there were tables both long and round. There were pillars near the rear of the dining hall that had tables built into them, with tall chairs up and against the desk-like tables. Booth tables were pushed up against the windows on the sides of the hall. This felt almost like some kind of restaurant more than it did a dining hall. It was more than I could have ever expected. Hey, you still with me?" I snapped back to our table and blinked. "Oh, right, sorry." I sat down and looked at the food I'd grabbed. "Kinda big, ain't it?" Logan laughed. "I was a bit surprised myself at the first time I came in here." "You've been here before?" I asked. "My big brother went here once upon a time. During his orientation, I ate with him here. Haven't been back since, though," Logan explained. "Hasn't changed much, honestly. Though the dessert bar is new." "Wait, there's a dessert bar?" I asked. "I hope they have ice cream." "Well, settle down there, crazy. You'll blow a gasket if you keep spazzing like that," Logan laughed. "What doesn't this place have?" I laughed. "It has so much, and it's only one dining hall out of 3, right?" "Well, for all it has, you sure didn't get a lot. Just a salad and a sandwich? You sick or something? What's wrong? Didn't like anything in line?" "Oh, right. I'm trying to eat healthy, you know." That wasn't entirely true. Everything looked great, and it wasn't that I was some health nut, but the truth was that the lines for everything else were so long, and I didn't want to stand in those lines and just have a bunch of people stare at me while I could only pretend like I wasn't a weirdo. Eat healthy? I say live for the moment, sister, Logan smirked. I shrugged and began eating. It might be different because I have 4 arms, but eating has always been a different matter for me than most. I let one pair of arms control the silverware and help me cut and eat food, while I have one hand that stays near the drinking glass, and my 4th hand rests in my lap to keep my napkin from falling on the floor. Mom and Dad always used to tell me that manners were extremely important, which to this day I find very odd considering they almost never took me to public places where manners would be more necessary. I began eating the salad first when I felt a nudge on my shoulder. Yes? I asked. To my surprise, it wasn't Logan that I turned to see. Instead, there was a young man standing on the other side of the table, and he was staring at me and Logan, but mostly me.
Hi, I'm Travis, the young man said kindly. I just wanted to introduce myself and ask if you two were new around here.
Yes, we are, I said. I looked Travis over. He had black hair and brown eyes, average body build, and a few zits on his face. Despite this, it didn't make him look unattractive. He was wearing a teal football shirt with the number 53 on the front. The fact that he'd come by to chat was a very friendly gesture. Logan, however, didn't share my same look of polite acceptance. She looked rather inquisitive and maybe even a little suspicious. What's it to you? Logan asked.
Oh, well, I'm just a junior here, but I'm rather familiar with the campus and some of the teachers. I wanted to offer you any help that I could, Travis said.
That's very nice of you, Logan answered, but she still didn't drop her suspicious glare. Yeah, but I think we can take care of ourselves kindly.
Oh, certainly, Travis laughed. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a slip of paper and handed it to me. But if you change your mind, there's my number.
Before I could even answer, he turned and walked away. Logan shook her head darkly. Well, that was sweet of him. He was kind of nice looking. Throw that piece of paper away, Logan growled. I turned in surprise and blinked. But why? It was nice of him to offer his help. And to give us his number so we could call him if he needed anything, I defended. You pretty naive, ain't you? Logan said. First of all, what was he just doing with a piece of paper with his number written on it? Seems kind of convenient, don't you think? Maybe he just wants to help students out, so he writes his number down on slips of paper and hands it out so he can be available? Right, which leads to my second point. If that's true, why did he only give you the number and not both of us? I think that was the only one he had, and he wrote it down specifically for you, Logan said. Well, Logan, maybe he's just trying to be nice. You don't know him, I said. And neither do you, Logan snapped. But I'll tell you what. I'll tell you what I do know, Jenna. I know boys. I've had a boyfriend before, remember? You're saying he was trying to... Look, Jenna, maybe he was genuinely trying to be nice. I'm sure that's possible. But he said he was a junior, and I also know that he couldn't take his eyes off you. Wow, people can't stop staring at the girl with 4 arms. What a shock, I growled. I didn't mean it like that, Jenna, Logan cried. I just mean that I don't think his intentions are pure. There are plenty of nice guys out there, but there are also guys who just want to get in a girl's pants the first chance they get. And how do you know the difference? I asked. Logan finally paused and looked down at her plate and sighed, not sure how to answer. Jenna, the nice guys out there are the guys who want to get to know you more. They're the ones who approach you with respect, with courtesy, and usually are kind of shy about it, at least in my experience. This guy might be just fine, but he came on too fast, pushed a phone number into your hands, and then walked off. He walked off because you scared him off, I defended. I pulled out the piece of paper and unfolded it, getting ready to plug the number into my phone. But it was what I saw written above the number that shocked me. Above the number was written, "For a good time, call." What? I asked in surprise. Logan read it over my shoulder. She snarled, yanked the paper out of my hand, and ripped it up. That lowlife asshole! Please don't curse, I begged softly. I couldn't believe what I'd read. Had Logan been right? I'm sorry, Jenna, Logan replied. I think he was just trying to impress his friends or trying to mock you. It's something that popular kids and jocks do to new kids at school or kids that are different, and unfortunately you fit both profiles. But why would he do that? I asked. I thought he was actually trying to be friendly. Jenna, you didn't never go to public school, did you? No, I was homeschooled. My whole life. My parents were afraid of what would happen when people saw me. I felt tears rolling up as I finally understood what my parents had been afraid of. I'd been singled out by Travis because of my arms. He'd approached as a wolf in sheep's clothing, extending a hand of friendship while silently laughing at my naivety. Why? Was it the fact that I was a 4-armed freak? That I was a new student, or perhaps it was just because people can be that cold-hearted. I thought that there would be more mature people in a college, Logan growled, but it seems some people never grad as some delinquent assholes. Please stop cursing, I whispered. What's wrong? It's true, ain't it? True or not, I don't like cursing. It's mean, cruel, and I don't like it, I muttered. I'd never cursed before. Mom and Dad always told me that people only curse when they have nothing intelligent to say. If you spit out a curse word, it shows a glorious lack of intelligence. Besides that, I'd heard people curse in movies. I'd watched and read the movies I'd watched, the books I'd read, and it never made me happy. Whether Travis was an asshole or not was irrelevant. I would not repay cruelty with cruelty. See, there's the problem, Jenna. You're just too damn innocent, Logan said. And that's a problem? I argued. Well, no. It's not wrong to be kind and stuff, but it's clear that you have no experience in the real world. Curse words, cruelty, jerks who play with emotions, they're all so common, it's painful, Logan said. Then how am I supposed to make connections and friends? I cried, shoving my food away, my appetite all but gone. I don't want to spend my whole college life locked in my room out of fear of those things. Well, tomorrow is club day, Logan said. On club day, all the clubs and organizations of the school set up booths in the main courtyard for students to investigate and sign up for. Go and find one that sounds up your alley, and I'm sure you'll make some connections. I looked up and tried to smile a little. In all honesty, that did sound like a good idea, but what clubs would I join? I figured I'd have to wait for tomorrow to find out. Hope restored, I went back to the salad and sandwich. Logan just sat silently, her food long since finished. Hey, you can head back to the room if you want, I said. And let you walk back alone? You sure? Logan asked. I'm not a little girl, Logan. I can take care of myself. After what just happened, you really expect me to believe that? Look, don't worry about me. Logan gave me a concerned look, but then patted my shoulder. All right, I'll trust you. I'll see you back at University Place, she said. Don't let what that guy said do bother you, all right? There are plenty of much better guys in this world, I promise. Yeah, I know, thanks. Logan got up and I watched her walk out of Hicks. I went back to eating, trying to pull all that had happened out of my mind. When I got up to leave, I carried my tray away from the table. There was a spot at the farthest end of the dining hall where trays went. When the trays were put there, a track moved the trays into the kitchen where everything was cleaned. Hey! I turned to see Travis sitting with a couple of other guys who were all wearing similar jerseys. Some were grinning ear to ear. A few were snickering. Travis himself wore a very familiar smile that I no longer saw as friendly but as cruel and mocking. So, you wanted to come and see me personally? Travis asked. No, Travis, I'm just leaving. And by the way, what you did was really awful, I snapped back. Travis gasped and clutched his heart in mocking agony, and the others laughed. Mean? How horrible! I am so very sorry. I was only trying to be your friend. You're not my friend, I growled. I stamped my foot and turned to walk away, all 20 of my fingers gripping the tray tightly. Hold on. Before you go, I actually have a serious question, Travis called. I stopped a moment to hear him. Why did I stop? I knew anything he had to say would just be more cruel comments. So, I gotta know. You really have 4 arms? Yes, I really have 4 arms, I snarled. And you wear glasses? Travis snickered. Yes, I repeated. Okay, so you got 4 eyes and 4 arms. Does that mean you have 4 legs as well? The others snickered at his joke, but I only felt myself trembling with anger. I'd rather have 4 arms than no heart, I shouted, turning and running away from him. And I could hear him and his friends laughing at my outburst. And I could feel the eyes of everyone now staring at me for it. They'd gotten what they wanted out of me. They wanted an outburst, a childish tantrum. Now everyone in Hicks was staring at me. Me and my 4 shaking arms. Why wouldn't their laughter stop? Why couldn't I just hide myself? I thought I was over this, but it seemed that even I only had 2, if I even had only 2 arms. I still felt completely isolated. I ran out of Hicks fast until the laughter and the stares were behind me. I hate him, I whispered darkly. Those words stung my very soul, because I'd never hated anyone before. I'd been annoyed, sure. I'd been frustrated. I'd even been disappointed before with my cousins or my old friends, but I'd never hated someone before. But at that moment, Travis's face was stuck in my mind. That face that I thought was so kind and warm at first, a face that wanted to help me out and that I trusted so stupidly. Now I only saw it as this cold and malicious monster. When I got back to the apartment, I walked in to see Logan sitting in her room reading one of her manga. She looked at me when she saw me. Hey, Glad, what's wrong? She asked, looking at my face. I don't I whimpered, rubbing the tears from my eyes. What happened, Jenna? Was it Travis? She asked. No, please. I just want to go to bed, okay? I asked. Logan stopped and nodded. Yeah. Yeah, all right. I'll check on you tomorrow, okay? She asked. I nodded and hurried into my room, closing and locking the door behind me. I knew Logan meant well, but I needed time to be alone. I lay down on my bed and stared up at the spinning ceiling fan like a great top that caught me in its entrancing spin. I looked down in my writing journal and picked it up, staring at the empty page. I picked up my pen, and I did the one thing I always do when I feel my heart is heavy, while tears are rolling down my face. I began a poem of the heart. The tears, how they drown me in their rivers on my face, their stinging touch, their cold, their bitter embrace. I'd been a fool, I'd given my trust away. How could I do such a thing and not expect it to betray? As the tears dry upon my face, I can only rely on the words I write, on the lessons I learned before and the goal that lays within my sight. But can I still achieve these dreams? Can I overcome this grief? I'm sure that I will, but the pain is beyond my belief. After I finished writing, I set my pen down and lay back, my eyes closed, pushing the last of my tears out of my eyes and down my cheeks. I relaxed and tried to breathe easier. I felt like a baby crying over something so trivial, but I had not anticipated any of this. Nothing like this. I placed my forearms over my stomach and tried to hug myself, the way my parents did. And I could use that comfort now. And that was chapter 5. Move right along to chapter 6. So when I was writing this, for those who don't know, I wrote this to be sort of a story in the life of a person who goes to college for the first time. I actually wrote this story when I started college. So Jenna's experiences were largely based around my own. Now, I, of course, don't have 4 arms. I'm not in her exact situation. But when I went to college for the first time, I felt so out of my element. I felt so different. I felt like I was very much isolated. So Jenna and her naivety was very much my own naivety. I didn't expect a lot of the stuff that happened to me. So Jenna's story is almost a personal one. And yes, before anyone asks, most of the poems, unless I say otherwise, are written by me. I almost used Helping Hands as an excuse to write my own poetry too. So here we go. Chapter 6. Life is a series of questions, riddles that leave you to twist and turn, and living is seeking the answers to the questions of which you've earned. When one looks upon his life, his role upon creation, quite often he forgets the truth that it's all one big invitation. To learn, reach out, and to discover, to push the boundaries, and to uncover. Life is but a game of chance, where the joy is not in the winning or in the losing, but simply working your way from the beginning. Take that step. It's time to see what life has to offer, so be all you can be. I knew that poem by heart. It was mine after all. I had written it when I was 10 years old, and I'd wanted to write something that would inspire me when I felt nervous or afraid. It often helped to calm my nerves and make me feel better about what I would have to do or what making difficult decisions would be like. I'd last read the poem out loud to myself when deciding if I wanted to go to college or not. After saying it, it put a huge smile on my face that made my cheeks tingle, and I'd almost laughed and said yes. It was certainly not a good poem, easily one of my weaker ones, but I didn't write it so it would be good. I wrote it so it would remind me not to hesitate on my biggest life decisions. But now, was it enough to push me out the door? Right now, I didn't feel up to smiling or getting out of bed. The clock read 7 a.m. I had a class in just 2 hours, but after that jerk yesterday and after all the nervousness and anxiety of dealing with stares and whispers, I didn't want to face that again. No matter how many times I read the poem over and over in my head, it felt drowned out. It was like my head was under a shower head and the sound of laughter and whispers were drowning out the stanzas. It was like a radio filled with static and snow. I just couldn't make out the words. As I lay there thinking about it, I suddenly heard the knocking of my door. Housing! I sat up in bed. The voice was very unfamiliar to me. It was a male voice, and it sounded very polite and mature. I sat up and crawled out of the bed to throw on something. "Don't come in, please. I'm not dressed," I cried.
"Take your time,"
the voice answered. I quickly grabbed a large hoodie with forearm sleeves that I'd tailored just for me. I then slipped into my jeans and quickly tried to make my bed and straighten the sheets. Okay, I'm good."
"Well, that's great. Unlock your door, please."
"Oh, right. Sorry."
I blushed and ran to the door, unlocking it and opening it. Standing by the door was a young man who was clearly a year or two older than I was. Standing close to 6 feet tall, maybe taller, he had dark hair and kind eyes. He had slightly tanned skin, and he had a golden name tag on his teal polo shirt that read David Carney. "Hi, you must be Jenna, right?" David asked.
"Yeah, that's me," I said politely, still trying to figure out what he was doing at my door.
"I'm your residential advisor, David Carney. I live upstairs, and I'm kind of in charge of all the residents in this building." He held out his hand to shake mine, and I hesitantly extended one of mine. I felt so self-conscious of my other 3 arms now. I wondered how he felt about them. He glanced at them and raised his eyebrows a little, but he didn't give me a look of shock or disgust. "Mind if I come in?" he asked.
"Yeah, okay."
He stepped inside and looked at my room, smiling and just looking at my desk and my bed. "Why don't you take a seat?" he offered. "I just want to talk with you a bit. You have a morning class?"
"At 9 o'clock, I answered, dropping down on my bed.
"All right, then I'll make this quick," David laughed. "I won't take too much of your time. I just wanted to check up on you."
"Check up on me?" I asked.
"I understand you had a rough first night," David inquired.
"Did anything happen that you want to talk about?" I blinked a moment. He clearly meant the incident with Travis at the cafeteria. But how had he heard about that? Were the RAs here that well informed? "It's nothing. It was just a stupid prank."
"You know, I care about you, Jenna, and I care about everyone in this building. If there's something bothering you, I want you to tell me. I might be able to help you out," he said encouragingly.
There was something about his voice that felt soothing. His eyes never left my face. They never stared stupidly at my arms like I was some kind of monster, but instead he just looked at me, not my deformity. It wasn't a romantic look, but more just a listening gaze. He wasn't here to judge or prank me. I could tell he was actually here to hear me out. I don't know, I was hoping that coming to college would be a great start to my life. I want to be a writer, and, well, I didn't realize how much of a freak I am.
"Why do you think you're a freak?" David asked.
I gave a laugh and held up all 4 of my arms, waving them over my head to add emphasis. "Have you seen these? Everyone else has. I have 4 arms. I'm not a normal person. Everyone keeps talking about me behind my back, and then there was that Travis jerk."
"Now, I want you to tell me what happened, but before we go any further, I want you to know that you are not a freak for having 4 arms. It makes you unique," David said.
"Yeah, my parents say that too. So did Logan. But everyone else says,
"Why should your parents and Logan's word not count as much as the words of others?" David asked.
I paused a moment, feeling the logic slowly sink into my mind.
"If other people can call you a freak, and you take them seriously, why can't you take your parents or Logan seriously?"
I giggled softly and nodded. I guess that's true.
"If you want to see something really freaky, why don't you take a look at this?"
David leaned down and pulled up his right jean leg, showing his sock. He pulled down the sock, and I couldn't stop myself from gasping. Where his ankle should have been was a metal ball joint. He had a prosthetic foot from just above his ankle down. "Oh, God, how did that happen?"
"Shark attack while surfing in California," he chuckled. "Doctor said I was lucky not to lose my whole leg. So, hey, don't think you're a freak. If anything, it's cool that you have 4 hands. I'm down to 1 foot. I'm the jealous one here."
David burst out laughing, and I heard myself laughing too. I felt myself cheering up so quickly, just knowing there was someone else who kind of understood me.
"But anyway, now about this Travis person," David said, returning to the subject. "What did he do?"
I sighed. My spirits lowered again just thinking on it. It was stupid. He came on to me like he wanted to be friendly, and he even gave me his number, but it was a prank. The number was for a good time, and when I was leaving, he joked about my arms.
"Do you have any classes with Travis? Do you know his last name?"
David asked, concerned. I don't think so, but I don't really know for sure. I think he was on the football team. He was hanging out with a lot of them.
"Then you probably mean Travis Lee," David asked. "He's a running back on the football team. Kind of a tall guy, dark hair. He wears 53 jersey, right?"
I gasped and nodded. "That was him!" David frowned and jotted down something on a notepad.
"I'll let the community coordinator know about this," he said.
I don't want any trouble," I mumbled.
"Travis knows better than to do that, and his actions are in violation of Title IX policies. I have to document this case. Don't worry, you're going to remain anonymous," David said with a smirk. "Besides, you're one of my residents. I don't want any of my residents to be upset or depressed about something like this. If there's ever a problem, I want to know about it, okay?"
I nodded as he stood to leave.
As he did, he paused and looked at my desk, seeing my poetry notebook. I instantly felt my face go red. "Oh, don't look at that." "You write poetry?" David asked, picking it up and reading the note scrawled on it. Yeah, that they're private," I squealed. David grinned and set it down. "All right, sorry. I didn't mean to pry, but, it's pretty good," he said. "Anyway, see you at the community meeting tonight." "The what?" "Oh, you didn't hear? Tonight the entire building is meeting outside to talk about what kind of things can be expected from us this year. It's kind of mandatory, so you'll need to show up, along with Logan, wherever she is." "Okay, I'll let her know." "All right, you have a good day." David turned and walked out of the room, closing it behind him. I remained on my bed, staring at where he'd been sitting. I also saw which page of my poetry notebook he'd read. It was the very one I'd been reciting earlier. He'd read my inspiration poem. I smiled to myself and blushed. He'd made me feel wanted, like I wasn't strange. Had I finally made a new friend on campus besides Logan? As I thought about this, the door knocked again. "Who is it?" I called. "It's Logan. David left?" "You can come in," I called back. Logan opened the door and stepped inside. She was wearing a dark blue shirt and pants. Her dark hair was hanging free, and she had on boots on her feet. Her face was one of concern. "I'm sorry, I was the one who called David. I was worried that Travis had really hurt you, and..." "No, I'm glad you did. He was really nice. It made me feel better to talk to someone." "Don't you have a class in an hour or something?" Logan asked. "Oh, right." My thoughts turned to how I'd felt early before David and had talked. I'd questioned my desire to even go to class. I'd thought about giving in, but now I felt silly for thinking that way. Now I couldn't wait to run out the door and get started. "You want to get breakfast first?" Logan asked. "I'll walk with you." "Yeah, I think that'd be good," I answered, climbing out of bed and walking to my chest of drawers. "But let me get properly dressed. I had to throw on some quick clothes before David was coming in." "I'll be waiting in the living room then," Logan replied. I nodded as she walked out and grinned. It seemed David wasn't the only great friend I had here. Logan had proven herself a truly caring individual. I couldn't wait to tell Cousin Sam about those two amazing people. "Oh, shoot, I need to set up a time to meet with them, don't I?" I laughed. I went to grab for my phone, but then thought better of it. He was probably busy with his own college work, and I had things to worry about as well. It would be really bad to be late for my first class because of breakfast. After I was properly dressed, I ran out to meet Logan and walk with her to the breakfast cafeteria. "You sure you'll be okay?" she asked. "Do you want to hide your arms or something?" "No, I'll be fine. Thanks, though," I laughed. In my heart, I knew the whispers and glares would still get to me, but knowing I had two friends who didn't find me so strange was enough reason to not stop showing myself to others. I wasn't afraid for now. All right, and that was Chapter 6. And that concludes today's reading of Helping Hands. Next up is the Tale of Tomoki. So we'll go ahead and remove this image, and we'll put up our image of Tomoki. I hope you guys are excited. This was part of the reason why I had to skip last week for reading, because I just did not have a good picture of Tomoki to use. Well, not a good picture, sorry. I hadn't finished editing the Tomoki chapters, so I needed time to do that. But now we should be good. So I will pull up, there it is, an image for the Tale of Tomoki, slide that over, perfect. All right, I'll go ahead and leave that up. Give me a minute to get something to drink, and I will be right back. Okay. Sorry about that. I'm back now. So for those who do not know, The Tale of Tomoki is the story that I wrote when I was just getting out of high school.
It is my own take on a Saiyan story on Earth, and we've been reading this one for a while now, and we're not even halfway done. We are on chapter 32, as I recall, and we got a long way to go, so I'm very excited to continue this story. Cuban brother, in what state does Helping Hands take place? It takes place in South Carolina, because I based the school heavily off of the college I went to, so... Raven, was David based off of anyone? Yes, but also no. You see, at the time I wrote it, I was a residential advisor myself. So I based it a lot on my own duties as a residential advisor, so he's partially based off of me. But I also based him off of some of my friends who were also residential advisors that I worked alongside. So those were some connections. Anyway, let's get started. The Tale of Tomoki, Chapter 32. For those who do not remember, last time we left off, Tomoki had just killed Vokon. The thing that he swore he would never do, he just did. So, let's read. Daikon's head shot up in surprise as his scouter screamed into his ear. An energy level had spiked on his view screen far to the north of his location. He spun around trying to home in on the signal, his heartbeat rising a little as he looked at the numbers. 800,000. 900,000. It's still rising, Daikon cried. His hand clenched his fists. What on earth is causing that surge? It can't be Vokon. His power level can't be higher than maybe 500,000, and that's being generous. The Galactic Poachers? Not likely. Daikon suddenly grinned in excitement at the prospect of another option. Could it be Tomoki? The other Saiyan? Impossible. Even if he was hiding his power level somehow, it couldn't be more than 20,000. He was a weakling, pathetic and worthless. How could his strength have grown 50 times over in such a short time? Well, color me impressed. He climbed to his feet and turned in the direction of the spike as it dropped once more. In the same instant, it had appeared. Gone, he growled. There's no question it was real. Scouter isn't faulting, was it? I gotta see this. What power is waiting in Shan City? All right. Tomoki, are you finally ready to give me a real challenge? Daikon adjusted his scouter to lock onto the signature. He had found it so he could follow it. No matter how small it had dropped, the scouter should remember the energy. He then levitated off the ground and began flying towards the source, a smile growing on his face. If the scouter was right, and I just felt a power level of over 1 million, this foe might actually be the strongest opponent I've fought yet. I can hardly wait to meet them. He burst into laughter as he picked up speed, rocketing like a missile towards the city. But little to Daikon's knowledge, another figure watched silently from the shadows. She had observed him for a while. His scouter had not found her because her energy was not one any technology could understand. She too had felt that incredible power, and like Daikon, she was intrigued, but even more intrigued to see what would happen when Daikon encountered it. The gears were turning on this conflict. The hands of fate were at work, and she knew that her time was drawing close. This Daikon, or maybe even the power she'd sensed, could they be the key she'd been searching for this whole time? The weapons she'd sought after. Show me, Daikon. Show me the power a Saiyan possesses. I must know. I must know what fate has in store for us. I sat in the waiting room with several others around me, all silent and all with dark expressions, but none near as hopeless as mine. Hosha, clad in all his armor, sat on 2 chairs as his armor took up so much room. Melody sat beside me, a hand on my arm in comfort. Hayato was there too, glaring at me with a look of complete contempt and disappointment. What were you thinking, Tomoki? Hayato asked. Using the Jishin? What if there had been an incident? What if there had been incidents? People nearby? I know. I answered sharply. I screwed up. I really screwed up. Not entirely, Hosha explained in his electronic-sounding voice, created by the microphone on his helmet. Under galactic law, your actions fall under the qualifications of self-defense measures. Vokon posed a threat to the lives of others, and you are acting to prevent further harm. There will be no charges brought against you on this matter. That's not the point, Hayato snarled. And you know that, too. Don't you, Tomoki? I didn't answer.
but only nodded. "Would you lay off a little?" Melody spoke up. "Tomiki did what he had to. His intentions were good, and he was trying to—"
"He was trying to act out of vengeance," Hayato barked, forcing her silent. "There were no good intentions here. He wanted revenge, and he took it. Tomiki, I trained you better than this. A true martial artist and warrior thinks before he acts and doesn't attack to get even. He fights to protect, not to murder."
"I know, Master," I whimpered, my hand shaking while my other rested in a sling. I was fortunate that the Kabatawari had only given me a slight fracture to my arm. The Super Saiyan form must have heightened my threshold for damage and lessened the damage to my body.
"And worse yet, you used a technique that you knew was forbidden. Then why teach him at all?" Hosha pointed out. "In my opinion, Tomiki did what he had to. Vokon was a threat and had to be eliminated. Yes, he might have gone a little overboard with a dangerous technique, but he is gone now, right? I would have done the same had it been me."
"That's not the issue here," I argued. "It's the fact that I let my emotions get the better of me. That I gave in to the rage in me. I'm no different than Daikon."
"That's not true," Hosha snapped. "Daikon is a murdering psychopath who kills and destroys for pleasure. Tomiki, you're not him in the slightest."
"He's right, Tomiki," Melody encouraged.
"There's just one thing I don't get," Hosha interrupted. "That huge spike in power I picked up. How did that happen? Was it your technique? It was a power level I'd never seen before."
I turned to glance at Hayato, who shook his head slowly. We decided not to share the truth about my Super Saiyan form to the others. There was no way of knowing how Hosha would react if he knew the truth. Best for now to keep my Super Saiyan a secret. "It was just the Jishin technique," I replied. "Excuse me." The conversation was interrupted as a nurse walked into the room, followed by Mr. Rhodes. "Victoria would like to see a Tomiki?" I shrank back, but a small shove from Melody got me to my feet. I glanced around at the others and took in their expressions.
"Be gentle and be compassionate," Hosha advised. "But be honest. If you care about this girl, don't insult her by lying to her about what you did and why."
"Gee, tactful much?" Melody snapped. "He's right, Melody," I replied. "Victoria deserves the truth. No matter what." With that hanging in the air, I made my way to the nurse, who led me to Victoria. When I saw her, I felt a lump form in my throat. Bandages wrapped around her eyes, making her completely unable to see. Her left arm was tied in a sling, and she had a hand full of stitches. Not only there, but on her neck and shoulder. Though she didn't look as bad as before, the sight of her pained me deep within my soul. As the door closed behind me, she perked up and turned slightly towards the noise. "Tomiki?" she asked. "Hey, Vicky," I muttered. She beamed at the sound of my voice. I cringed, not being able to see her eyes shine like the way they always do when she smiles. "Hey, yourself! Tomiki, thank you so much. Dad told me you flew me straight to the hospital after what happened at the dance. Guess I'm glad I brought you as my date, huh?" I didn't smile back, but sat in the chair beside her bed and leaned forward, my hands clasped together, squeezing my knuckles nervously. "Don't thank me, Victoria. It's my fault." "Well, that's not true at all," Victoria argued. "Vokon wouldn't have attacked if I hadn't been there. If I'd held back, if I'd reserved or restrained my power, then you wouldn't have been hurt. Tomiki, it's not your fault," Victoria snapped encouragingly, leaning towards me and reaching out across her bed, searching for my hand. I held it out and placed it on hers softly. She squeezed my hand and smiled. "Tomiki, you saved so many lives last night. You risked your life for all of us at the dance. I was stupid to come back into the room. I was worried and wanted to make sure you were okay, and that was my mistake, not yours. I should have known better. You beat Vokon and saved my life. You are my hero." "I'm not a hero," I grimaced. She started to argue, but then stopped when she felt my hand trembling. I couldn't stop it. Tears were filling my eyes and blurring my vision. I'm a killer." "Tomiki, what's wrong?" "Vokon won't be hurting anyone ever again," I explained. I hunted him down, and I found where he was hiding." Victoria tensed up, and though I couldn't see her eyes, I could feel the intensity in her blank gaze. "Tomiki, what happened?" she asked, but her tone of voice showed she knew the answer. He mocked you. He called you foolish and stupid, and I lost control. I gave in to my anger, and I killed him. I used a forbidden technique, and I killed him. He was buried under the rubble of a ruined warehouse. Victoria leaned back in her bed, and her breath was shaky as she took in my words. I went Super Saiyan, and I gave in to that anger. I just let go, and the tears flowed freely now as I pulled my hand away from her. I was worried she'd slap it away first. I couldn't even look at her now. Her silence hurt me worse than any blow Vokon gave me. I'm sorry. I killed him. I see, Victoria whispered. He was going to kill you. He tried to murder everyone at the dance. You're not him, Tomaki. You're not a killer like him. Why would you do that? I did it because of me? Victoria asked, choking on her words. Was I the reason you killed him? I didn't answer her right away. I just bit my lip and stood up, walking away from the bed. He hurt you. Tomaki, you know better. You're a hero. You're a defender. You're not some avenger. I'm a Saiyan! I roared back, silencing her. It's in our blood. Murder, destruction, vengeance, it's in our nature. It's like this instinct that I can never get rid of. Maybe Daikon was right. I was just fooling myself all this time that I could be some kind of hero or something. But last night, when I confronted Vokon, I felt that rage. I'd felt it the night Mom was killed. I felt it when Warren died. This anger. It's an urge to fight with everything I had and destroy everything in front of me. How can I fight what I am? What if being a killer really is who I am, Victoria? What if that's who I am, what I've always been, and I've just been fooling myself? Maybe I really am just a monster. Just a monster. I turned away from Victoria as the tears now rolled off my cheeks and hit the floor. I leaned into the wall and bit back the sobs I wanted to give. I finally glanced back at her as she was leaning forward on her bed, her face hidden behind her beautiful silvery red hair. You deserve better than me, Victoria. I'm a killer and a monster, and you're perfect. I walked towards the door and placed my hand firmly on the knob, turning it. This is goodbye, Victoria. I love you, and I always will. I couldn't finish the words, and I opened the door. You idiot! She screamed. I spun around to face her, and I could see tears rolling out from under her bandages. You're such an idiot, Tomaki, she cried. Victoria? I turned and watched her whip away her bed sheets and turn her body as if to get out of bed. I gasped and ran to her. Don't get up! You need to stay in... I didn't finish. As soon as I reached her, she threw her arms around my neck and sobbed into my shoulder. And I could only stand there dazed and amazed as she cried hot tears down my shirt. Don't leave me, she hiccuped. Tomaki, don't you ever talk like that again, please. But what I did, you made a mistake, she cried. You lost control. Yes, I'm disappointed in you, but don't ever compare yourself to Daikon. Don't call yourself a murderer or a monster around me because I know who and what you are. You are a hero. You saved my life. You protected me when I was too stupid to stay out of the line of fire. I wrapped my arms around her. She wept, and I cried too, bitterly and without restraint. I love you too, Tomaki. I don't want you to go over this. Why, though? I asked. After what I did. Because that's what you do when you love someone. You forgive them. And that was chapter 32. Ooh, needed something to drink there. All right, time for chapter 33. Believe it or not, this took a long time to edit. Before I read this one to you, I'm going to do a slight change here. Give me just a second. Give me just a second. Because y'all need to know the story behind this chapter. This chapter has an interesting story. Okay, so I'll lay it out for you. Back when I first wrote The Tale of Tomoki, at this point, back then, this would be the second arc, because Tomoki's story was broken into 4 arcs. The Mamaragon arc, the Daikon arc, the Boalok arc, and then the Ball arc. So there were 4 arcs in Tomoki. At this point in the second arc, I had a lot of friends and fellow writers come to me wanting to add their characters to the story. And since I had no interest in publishing Tomoki, I didn't mind adding their characters. It allowed me to play around with new possibilities. One of the characters was a girl named Spirit, and I will share her image with you because I do think I still have one of her images saved. Let me take a look. I'm almost certain I do. No, not there. That's not it. Hold on. Hold on. I know I've got it somewhere. Let me see. Yeah, here it is. This is a picture of her. So that was supposed to be her. This was the character that was going to meet Tomoki at this point in the story. So after killing Vokon, this character would appear. She belongs to another deviant artist called the Burning Spirit. This was basically her OC, and her whole thing is she's a demon hunter. She basically hunts down demons and kills them. And she showed up in Shan City hunting a demon, ends up teaming up with Tomoki to help stop Daikon. It's a whole thing. Now, when I started rewriting and editing the story of Tomoki, I was like, okay, I'd love to still add Spirit, but she's not my character, so I didn't want to use her again without her permission. So I reached out to the artist and asked, would she be willing to let me use Spirit again? I never heard from her. It's been a while, and she hasn't been active on DeviantArt for a very long time, so I think that she's just done with the website, which is fine. You know, people move on. But she still played a very important role in Tomoki's story, so just removing her altogether would throw the entire story out of whack. So I thought, how about I create a brand new character to fill her role? And thus, I got to work and made a new character to replace her. But I didn't want her to be just like Spirit. I wanted to create something new. So I got to work designing and working out an idea. I talked with some friends of mine, Aaron and Hannah. We discussed it together, and we came up with a design. And I even went to my friend at work, Daniel. I don't know if he's here tonight. If you are here, Daniel, go ahead and shout out in chat. Let us know you're here. But he helped and even came up with the name for this character. And now, to share, I would like you all to meet the new character that will be added to the story, Ren. This is the image that was created for Ren. Now, I do admit it is an AI image. That is because we haven't had any official art made of her yet, but Hannah says that she might do some. So that is what she looks like. I think it's a great design, personally. I think it's very beautiful, and she will have a role to play. The role will grow steadily because since she's my character and not Spirit's character, I feel like I have more control of her. I have more control of what I can do with her story and what she does. So, yes, you are now going to meet Ren, short for Renee. Like, I thought that was a cool name. And I think it's going... Hey, it's a girl from the... Yes, it is. It is. Okay, so, awesome. We'll leave that up for the duration of this next reading because Ren will be showing up in this chapter. So, let's get started. Take another drink real quick. Okay. And we shall begin. By the way, Daniel, if you're there, this is for you, bro. Oh, I'm sorry. I do mean to say one more thing. I'm sorry. Before I start reading, I just remembered this. All the other chapters I've read so far from Tomoki are my original writings back from when I first started writing Tomoki. I've just edited them a little bit to fix some minor errors and problems in the story or to adjust character dialogue. This chapter is 100% original. I wrote this chapter from scratch to include Renee. So now you just know this is an original. All right, here we go. The woman sitting in the far corner of the diner drew everyone's attention, though she'd done nothing out of the ordinary. It wasn't her skin tone, which was dark brown, like chocolate. It wasn't her beauty, though she did have lovely features. Striking eyes and a nice figure. It wasn't her voice, despite its southern twang and distinct sultry allure. It was how cold she seemed. The moment she'd walked into the diner, it felt like the temperature had dropped a few degrees, and being near her felt somewhat unnerving, making all the patrons want to shift away quietly in their seats, but not to be rude, of course. She spoke to no one other than the waiter and was short and to the point with what she wanted. No one could place what was wrong with this woman. No one was quite sure how to address her. What they knew was that this woman was somehow very dangerous. She reminded some of the patrons of the former leader of the She-Triads, Mamaragon, and yet she obviously wasn't him. But who was this woman? After eating her sandwich and laying money down on the table, she adjusted her leather jacket and stood up. She then turned her gaze on one of the guests sitting at the bar and approached him. The young man winced, but said nothing as she leaned on the bar. "Morning, sugar," she said with a smile. "Think y'all can help me out?" "Ma'am?" he asked nervously. She reached into her coat pocket as she spoke. "I'm looking for someone. Maybe you know him." She laid a photo down on the bar. "Answers to the name Tomoki. Word is he ain't from this world?" "Tomoki?" the man asked. The name caused several patrons to look up in surprise. They all knew the name. Everyone in and around Shan City knew the name Tomoki. The hero who defeated Mamaragon and the She-Triads. The warrior who had worked to lower the crime rate in the city. And the alien with a tail who had leveled 4 blocks worth of property 2 weeks ago. Some saw Tomoki as a hero. Some saw him as a disaster. But everyone agreed that he was powerful. Yeah, you know where I can find him? "What do you want with him?" the man dared to ask. The woman smiled. "I have my reasons, and let's leave it at that," she answered. "Well, it's not easy to say," the gentleman answered, aware now of everyone's eyes on them. "Tomoki defends Shan City, so he could be anywhere in the city right now, but after the incident 2 weeks ago, not many people have seen him. Something he's gone into hiding." "Hiding?" she asked. "Well, that just won't do." She put away the photo and then tapped the counter. "I'm buying this gentleman's food," she said loudly to the bartender who could hear. The gentleman looked at her surprised and she smiled. "Didn't think I wouldn't reward you, did you?" "But I didn't tell you anything about Tomoki. I don't know where he is." "You answered my question, and that's enough," she replied. She then laid a card on the counter to pay, and the gentleman sighed. After she finished paying for him and herself and turned to leave, he swiveled in his chair fast. There's a rumor that Tomoki frequents either Zhang High School in Zhongboro or Taiga Park. That's all I know," he called. The woman stopped and grinned back at him. "Thank you," she winked before walking out again. As she did, the temperature seemed to rise ever so slightly, like the cold air had left with her. The man felt himself smiling at having helped, and yet his thoughts then turned to Tomoki. What did a woman like that want with him? I was sitting in Taiga Park quietly. The air was chilly and a soft wind blew my hair around. I hadn't been to Hayato's training dojo in days, and though I was still on patrol and attending school where I could, my heart wasn't in it anymore. I couldn't shake the guilt or the anger of what I'd done. Everything I knew and believed was spiraling out of control around me, and I couldn't understand it all anymore. I was a Saiyan, but what did that mean? Daikon claimed that a Saiyan is nothing more than a warrior who proves his strength and grows stronger by destroying everything and everyone around him, climbing over mountains of corpses to prove their superiority, but I had spent my whole life avoiding that very thing. Bell and Hayato had worked so hard to keep me from going down the path of bloodshed, and yet was that even possible for me? I couldn't deny that there were moments where I felt that desire to kill. an unquestionable urge to destroy. When Bell died, when I'd fought Atlas, when Mamaragon killed Warren, all those times when I'd activated this Super Saiyan power, I'd felt that desire to kill. So was that what a Super Saiyan was? My true Saiyan nature being brought out to the forefront? If so, was I just repressing my true nature? How long until it broke through again? After all, I'd let it out willingly on Vokon and his poachers, and now they were all dead, and the collateral damage I'd caused was outstanding. All because of my Saiyan rage. Was I really Shan City's hero, or was I just a time bomb waiting to go off? Even if I could live with the guilt of what I'd done, I couldn't shake the way Hayato had looked at me, and the way Victoria had cried. I could practically see my mother's face if she'd seen me. The disappointment was enough to make my skin crawl. For the last few days, I'd stayed with Dr. Nicole, who let me live in her spare bedroom. She was good to me and always wanted to check on my injuries and state of mind, and I didn't tell her to stop, but I also didn't let her in on everything I was feeling. It was pointless. She just wouldn't understand. Melody had left the city for a while to deal with a personal matter of her own. Meanwhile, the Galactic Patrol fellow, Hosha, had been busy dealing with the death of the poachers. His reinforcements had arrived to help clean up the mess. Now they'd set up a safe house somewhere outside the city to conduct their operations. Hosha had invited me to sit in, but I'd refused. Even if I wanted to join them, I knew the Galactic Patrol wouldn't take kindly to a Saiyan helping them. That much was unquestionable. I wrapped my arms around myself and tried to hug my body, not just due to the chill, but because I felt myself shivering from the fear of what I was, what I could become. I hadn't even been able to visit Victoria. God, Victoria. What she must think of me. She'd finally gotten out of the hospital. She wasn't permanently damaged, thankfully, but due to the trauma in her ocular nerve, she was temporarily blind and needed assistance to get around. I'd been there to see her discharged, but we barely spoke. She seemed only partially interested in me, as if she were merely aware I was there but said nothing more. I know she'd forgiven me, but she was still upset that I'd killed for her, taken a life for her, and I was upset about it too. Now I couldn't face her. Not like this. "Excuse me?" I turned my head at the voice and saw someone walking up the grass behind me. She was black with short curly hair and icy blue eyes like a winter morning. She wore a leather jacket with fur trim and tight jeans. Her hands were on her hips and she was cocking one hip to the side in a very feminine manner. I glanced at her a long moment. I was sensing something about her. Something different. "Yes?" "Are y'all Tomaki?" the woman asked. "Yes, I am," I answered. The woman smiled broadly. "Fantastic. You're just the man I'm looking for," she said, walking towards me. I stood up to face her, and she reached into her back pocket to pull out what looked like a wallet, but when she opened it, I saw a silver badge inside. "I'm Renee Frost, but everyone calls me Ren. I'm an agent of the Supernatural Catastrophes and Anomalies Response, or you can just call us SCAR for short. I've been wanting to meet you for some time, Tomaki." "I've never heard of SCAR before," I answered honestly. "That's not surprising. We've only formed a few years ago, and we haven't made any major moves as of yet in the public eye, though I believe that may change very soon," she winked. "Now, if you'd be so kind..." She stepped forward and placed her hand on my chest, before suddenly her eyes flashed a white blue, and I felt cold spread across me in a sudden wave of chill. Ice was flowing from her hand up my chest and body, coating me in the hard, frozen substance. I gasped as the ice soon spread all up my body into my neck. "I'd ask for an immediate surrender." I gasped in disbelief and snarled, "You dirty—" "Just make this easy on yourself, sugar. You ain't got a prayer against me," she explained. "Is that right?" I snarled. I powered up, the energy of my ki bursting in the ice as I leapt at her. She dodged fast, and I rebounded to strike her in the stomach. She grunted in pain and slid backwards. As she did, she gripped the ground, and I noticed how the grass blades seemed to whiten with frost. The chilly air around us was getting colder, and the sky overhead, which had been overcast and gray now, seemed slightly more dreary. I didn't have time to focus on this, though, as suddenly she raised her hand, and I was stunned to see ice like a tidal wave rushing towards me. I threw out my own hand and blasted the ice apart with my ki. She didn't let up, and I was forced to fly out of the way. "Don't run away now, this is just getting good," she shouted. She raised her hands, and I watched as the ice she'd launched turned and started flying at me, the form of dozens of ice shards. I struck them back, but the hits cut my hands. They were sharp like knives. With a shout of anger, I expelled a ki blast, and the ice melted or shattered. I lowered myself to the ground again and shot at her. I'd closed the distance so she couldn't keep firing those shards at me. To my surprise, though, she dodged the kick and fired a punch off. I evaded, and she followed up with a knee strike, which I had to block. She wasn't just able to control ice and slush. She could fight hand to hand. Who was this woman? "You got some power after all, don't you?" she laughed. "Not bad at all." "Who the hell are you?" I snapped as I blocked her punch. Her strikes weren't anything spectacular. My Saiyan strength made me superior physically, but each blow, even glancing, was ice cold, and I could tell she was trying to grab me again to spread her icy touch. As she tried to grab my face, I slapped her wrist aside and swung a punch into her face. She couldn't dodge in time and went sprawling backwards. I knew better than to let up, though. I pursued and kicked her hard in the sternum. She coughed and crashed into the grass. I raised my hand to fire down a ki blast to finish her off. One shot should do it. To do what? I froze and stared, my ki dying in my hand as I thought about it. One shot was all it took to kill her. No, I couldn't risk it. I couldn't kill again. I lowered my power and I hesitated. In that instant, an ice shard fired up at me and struck me in the shoulder. I winced in agony as blood spurted from the wound. I enhanced my energy again to make up for my lapse, but she was already running towards me. She was bruised and her nose was bleeding pretty bad, but she still looked like she could fight. She closed fast, and again we were locked in a vicious exchange of blows. Each one she delivered felt painfully cold. "You gotta be tougher than that, Tomaki," she challenged. She swung a high kick. "Why'd you hesitate? Why aren't you really fighting me?" "I don't want to kill you," I remarked. "I don't even know why you want to fight me." "Does it matter?" she asked. "You're a Saiyan, ain't you? From what I hear, that's what you do." There it was again, that painful and infuriating reminder. "I'm not like that," I snapped. "I'm nothing like the other Saiyans." I shot a focused ki burst after her, and she evaded, but not before taking my own kick to the hip. She grimaced, and I shot a wild punch at her. She inhaled fast and blew hard, the icy air from her lips freezing as it hit my fist. I gasped and withdrew my hand. "What the hell are you?" I jumped back and used my ki to heat up my hand and remove the ice. I was shivering now from the constant cold, and regulating my ki was getting annoying. Renee stopped and placed a hand on her hip, looking rather annoyed. "You know, I can always tell when someone ain't really putting their heart into something," she said with disappointment. "I was here thinking you'd be way tougher, and I got a feeling you'd killed me already if it weren't for something holding you back. So what's eating you, Tomaki?" I don't even know why we're fighting. I don't know who you are. I don't like fighting people when I don't know the reason for it, I explained. Renee raised an eyebrow. "Is that right?" she asked. "Huh. Well, guess that makes some sense. But the way I heard it, seems to me you don't gotta know much to take someone out. I mean, that whole She-Triad business was a bit out of the blue, wasn't it? You didn't know Atlas or Hermes or Mamaragon all that well, but you took them down hard." "You know about the She-Triads?" I asked. Renee laughed. "Please, sugar, the news got around a while ago," she laughed. "And now we got reports of aliens landing in the city? Poachers, patrollers, Saiyans? Who's next, E.T.? She was joking, giggling, and I was starting to realize this fight wasn't serious to her. She wasn't behaving like she had a vendetta or that she honestly wanted me dead. What was her deal? "I can't read you," I snapped. "Will you just tell me the truth already?" "But we're just having fun, right? Why stop?" she asked. "We're in a park. There were people here before we started this snowball fight," I roared, pointing to this now cleared-away park, where frost layered the grass. There were signs of a few people hiding behind trees or bathroom constructs watching our brawl. Renee looked and her smile faded. "Oh, damn, I didn't even notice them." To be honest, I hadn't either, but she didn't need to know that. "We keep this up, someone could get hurt. Tell me why we're fighting, and then if you really want to keep going, we'll go somewhere safe." Renee looked at me a moment before her eyes shot upwards behind me. "Behind you!" I spun around fast, just in time to see a ki blast land only a few feet away from me as I dodged. I saw him, floating above me with an annoyed grimace on his face. The red and blue Saiyan armor, the scouter on his face, and that wicked, cold expression. "Damn, seems you're still not ready," Daikon growled. "I came all the way back to this useless city and find you're still a weakling who's too afraid to get his hands dirty." "You!" I snapped. "So what was it?" he asked. "What killed the poachers? I don't sense their energy anymore, and I see the Galactic Patrol ships landing, carting what's left of them off this rock. Don't tell me it was them." I didn't answer him, only glared angrily. I was thinking of the best way to attack, looking for an opening. I could charge him. He'd just evade me. Maybe a surprise ki attack? No, he'd cancel it out. Besides, the longer this brawl went on, the more innocents got hurt.
Friend of yours?
Renee asked. Hardly, I answered. So who killed Vokon and his lackeys? Daikon asked. Who knows? I snapped back. My face must have told something because Daikon's smile widened. It was you, wasn't it? He asked. What if it was? It didn't make sense. The poachers alone wouldn't have been able to kill Vokon that quickly or that mercilessly. He might be a weakling, but Vokon had guts. The only thing that makes sense is if you did the deed. Not bad, kid. What the hell do you want from me? I snapped. He tapped his scatter and nodded slowly. Respectable. Your power level's gone up a fair amount, but it's still not good enough. You're not ready to entertain me yet. I thought I'd stop by to see if you were finally ready to die by my hand, but you're still not worthy of that honor. He floated upward several feet looking around. So why hesitate? There are plenty of life forms in this city to destroy. Get to it. Vokon was a great start, but why haven't you done more? I'm not a murderer like you, I bellowed back. I know a certain poaching team that would disagree if they could still breathe, Daikon sneered. You can keep preaching your passive bullshit if you like, but I'll just keep on killing Tomoki and getting stronger each time. And the more time it takes you to wake up and realize what you are, the more bored I get. How long before I reach my limit and just destroy every city on this useless rock? I wanted to attack him, to fly up there and stop him, but I knew he was right. I still wasn't ready. I wasn't even close, and after what happened with Vokon, I knew that something was off with me now. Daikon shrugged and flew away. I think I'll give you a little longer to think on it. But in a month, in 1 month, Tomoki, I'm coming back. And ready or not, I'm going to kill you. The question is, will it be an honorable fight between two Saiyans? Or will I just decimate this whole damn city while you watch? He then flew away from me, leaving me to shiver furiously with rage.
Well, damn. That wasn't what I expected.
I turned to see Renee still standing there, her eyes wide and her arms crossed.
That was another Saiyan, I reckon.
What are you still doing here? Do you still want to fight me? I demanded. She shook her head.
Nah. Think I had enough of that. Gotta let my people know about him, she explained.
I still don't know why you were fighting in the first place, I snapped. If you haven't noticed, I've got bigger problems to deal with than you.
Well, maybe I can help you, she asked.
I looked back at her and she smiled broadly.
I came out here to test your fighting skills. Scar could use strong warriors like you, and I had to see if you could keep up.
You want me to join your organization? I asked.
It ain't a bad fit for you, she grinned. Our purpose is to seek out and eliminate supernatural and extraterrestrial threats. We were founded not long after the Golden Warrior incident, but we ain't had the numbers or firepower to really make any difference yet. Then you showed up and, well, that kind of changed everything. Now more mutants and metahumans are wanting to be just like the Golden Warrior those years ago, wanting to stand up to these threats just like that.
Is that right? I asked. She didn't seem to know that I was the Golden Warrior. Probably best I not tell her that for now. No telling how she'd react to that news.
So, she laughed. And that other Saiyan? The one you was just talking with? He seems like he's a real handful.
More than you realize.
Well, all the more reason you may need our help,
she offered. Let me think about it, I answered, not wanting to answer this right away. No offense, but you did just attack me out of the blue, and I've got a lot on my mind right now. Renee looked at me a long time before walking over and putting a hand on my shoulder. It was surprisingly warmer than I'd expected.
I'm going to be sticking around town for a little while anyway, so even if you're not ready to sign on with us yet, maybe you wouldn't mind the backup?
I looked at her with a tired glare. She was being sincere for once. I couldn't tell if she genuinely wanted to help me or if she was just hoping that I'd be more willing to join her club if she helped me here. But at this point, I was starting to run out of options. I knew that my heart wasn't right. I was off my game and I was fighting a personal series of doubts and demons. I wasn't ready for Daikon, and I had a month to figure out how to beat him. Maybe having the backup from this mysterious snow woman was what I actually needed.
I wouldn't mind, I answered. Well,
You can call me by Renee if you like, or by my code name, Black Ice.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, is chapter 33 of Tomiki Rewritten. Well, hey, Jay. I didn't expect you to show up. How you doing, man? And Aaron, too. Good to have y'all. Good to have y'all along. Well, let me know what y'all thought of that new Tomiki chapter. Well, I take a drink. I needed the drink. Yeah, I like Renee too. I think Renee is cool. I'll go ahead and put up the next image. We're going to be reading Monster Club next. All right, let me see. I need to find a good Monster Club image for this. Let me see. Jay has never drawn any of the Monster Club characters. I know Hannah has. She's drawn plenty. Let's put up... What's a good one? You know what? I'll put up this one. It has a special place in my heart. Oh, whoa. Way too small. Way too small. Okay, never mind. My fault. Hey, Jay. How you doing, Jay? All right, doing good? Excellent, excellent. Good to see you, man. I think I'll put up this image. This is Hannah's most recent drawing of Abraham. She wanted to try to redesign the characters, so this was her most recent drawing of him. So, Jay, what did you think of Renee there? You popped in about the time I was reading about her. What did you think of that? Will they be like the Justice League or the X-Men? I compare Scar more like the X-Men than the Justice League, because in the world that I created with the Tale of Tomiki, there are a bunch of people who are mutants, but they weren't created naturally. They're almost like the Bang Babies from Static Shock. They were created through experimentation. And she is one of them. In fact, you'll learn a little bit more about Renee's story later on. All right, well, let's get to it, I say. Let's go ahead and read the next chapter of Monster Club. Where'd we leave off? No, that's not it. Chapter 45. We left off on chapter 45. All right. We're making progress. So, for those who are new to this and don't know what Monster Club is, Monster Club... Oh, I only caught the end, really, but it seemed like it was really cool. It was cool. It's funny because she has ice powers. Anyway, so Monster Club is a story that I wrote a long time ago, like back in 2017. It's a story of a young man named Abraham who has found a family of misfits, monsters, as it were, called the Monster Club, and is trying to find a way to fit in with them. Where we left off in the story, Abraham and a few of the Monster Club members who aren't good at fighting or surviving have had to flee to a farm for a little while the Dawnbringers, a group of monster hunters, are chasing down their friends. So they're about to head back and check and see if they're okay. And Abraham just got a shocker that it turns out he was the one that the Dawnbringers were after, because his grandfather was Solomon. And Solomon tried to create a haven for monsters in his life. So they're worried that Abraham will do the same thing. Jay, will you make a character in the Tale of Tomiki? That is a good question. Jay, do you want one of your own characters in the Tale of Tomiki? You be the judge. All right, let's get started. Monster Club, chapter 45. Here it goes. It was so dark that Abraham could barely see the ground as he climbed on David's back. David just fidgeted nervously. Tamil climbed on behind Abraham and wrapped his arms around Abraham tightly, unable to see. Clinging to him was the only way he could make sure he didn't fall off. "This horse ride not enjoyable," Tamil muttered. "This is not a horse ride because I'm not a horse," David snapped angrily, stomping his hoof. "Feel like horse and smell like horse," Tamil mumbled. "And you smell like a corpse. You don't hear me complain. Shut your yaps, both of you," Alex shouted, marching towards him quickly,
carrying Annie on his shoulder with Tori running behind them. "You ain't got the time to have a shouting match." "Where have you been?" David asked. "It's already past sunset and the forests are really dark now." "Stop being a baby," Penn growled, hovering near David's ear. "Jelly knows these forests like the back of her hand, she does." "Jelly no path," Jelly squealed, jumping up and down excitedly. "You want me to trust the slime ball?" David asked. "Or you can go alone," Penn shrugged. "Your choice." David just sighed in disgust and placed his hands on his hips. Alex set Annie down and Tori picked her up instead, opening her wings to fly. Since Annie was lighter, Tori could carry her instead. David was strong enough to carry Tamil, Jelly, and Abraham. Since Jelly weighed next to nothing, it wasn't such a big deal to add to the weight. Alex patted the free spot on Alex's back, just between Abraham and David's back, allowing her to sit next to him. David grunted a little. "Can we go now, please?" he asked. "I want to get this over with. Plus, carrying 3 folks is heavy." "Hold on, we're not done yet." Everyone turned to see Christina marching up towards them with a backpack in her hands. She reached up to Abraham and handed him the backpack and handed him a smile as well, her eyes still hiding behind her shades. "What's this?" Abraham asked. "Abraham, I used to think that any future that humanity had with monsters like us would end in death, for one side or both. I may have labored under the delusion that we could coexist, but time kept proving me wrong time and time again until I'd just simply given up hope. And then we met you. You're special, and if what we know is true about this grandfather of yours, there are other humans out there who see us as you do." "I don't know if I'm all that, or if it's that clear cut." "It ain't," Alex replied. "It ain't meant to be simple. Nothing is. But the truth is, Abraham, that despite what we are and what we're capable of, you look past that. Be it naivety, righteousness, or both, it gives us hope that we won't have to hide forever. So take that backpack with you. Inside are a few mementos from us here at the farm." "Jelly helped make it," Jelly said proudly. "We all did," Penn added. "If you and your club are ever in need of a place to come and visit or stay, I think we can accommodate you. Wouldn't you agree, Alex?" Penn glanced at Alex, who crossed his arms with a nod. "We'd be honored." "Thanks, guys," Abraham whispered. "You're very kind," Tamil agreed. "Now that's enough touchy-feely stuff. David, Jelly, get these 3 back home. Tori, it was nice to see you again." "I'll visit soon," Tori announced, already flying off into the sky, Annie clutching her in a hug. "Let's go, you 3. Jelly, don't get distracted, please." "Jelly?" "She's staring at a firefly," Abraham smirked. "Jelly! Jelly here!" she squeaked. "Focus!" David snapped as he took off into the forest, causing Tamil to cling to Abraham tighter. Abraham glanced back at Alex, Penn, and Christina, all watching them run off and waving. He prayed he'd get to see them again soon. He wanted to pause and look in the backpack, but he knew that wasn't the right time. Maybe later, when he was safe with the club. "Guys, we're back!" Abraham called out as they drew close to the garage. "Shut up!" David snapped back. "We don't know what's waiting for us there." "Oh, right." Abraham fell silent again as David slowed to a trot. Abraham looked around, and what he saw bothered him, to say the least. There were tiny glints in the dirt from bullet casings, and you could see flecks of blood scattered here and there. The ground was uneven, and the concrete areas around the building had cracks in them from massive impacts. Abraham jumped down from David's back as Tamil stumbled off a wall. "It's like a battle took place here." "The Dawnbringers, probably," David answered. "Hey!" Abraham glanced up to see Tori flying to the ground, Annie in her arms. When she landed, she looked around as well, the smile on her face vanishing. Where is everyone?" "We'd all like to know that," Abraham replied. Annie walked up to Abraham and took his hand. They're okay, right?" "I'm sure they are," Abraham assured her. Jelly was climbing down from David's shoulder and looking around as well. "Jelly never been here before," she noted. "It's so bad looking." "You mean it looks like a battlefield," David explained. "Katie, Sarah, Michelle, Asher, Calypso, can any of you hear me?" Abraham shouted. There was no reply, and soon Abraham began to feel his heartbeat faster. How much had he missed? "Everyone, it's okay. You can come out now." "Abraham?" From behind the main entrance, Katie came slithering out. She had a black eye and her tail looked a bit damaged in places, but she was alive. "Katie!" Abraham cried, running to her. Tamil ran in the direction of Katie's voice and grabbed Abraham's arm so he could lead him there. When he approached, she fell forward and he quickly caught her. She was more injured than he realized. I'm okay, she whispered. "Abraham, I'm so glad you're okay. Tamil, you're fine? And Annie?" "We're all okay, but we were attacked by that monster who destroyed our home," Abraham answered. "He say one of you dead is lying. Please say he lying," Tamil shouted. Katie's eyes fell and she bit her lip. It's true. We fought hard, but Asher couldn't hold them off forever. They broke through and... Who? Annie spoke tearfully. Mato, she answered darkly. Mato died shielding Sarah and Calypso from a fatal silver shard grenade. She then stood up and tears rolled heavily down her face. Asher and Michelle are gone too. Tamil screamed and slammed his head against a wall in terror. They were kidnapped, taken by the Dawnbringers. No way! Asher's way too strong for that. He would have fought back and killed them, Abraham argued. He was already exhausted, and the Dawnbringers had timed their attack with the rising of the sun. He couldn't keep fighting in daylight, Katie whimpered. Sarah was unconscious, and Calypso was mending my wounds. Michelle tried to save him, but she got caught too. Why not just kill them? David asked. Katie glared up at David furiously, who backed up a few paces out of fear. How should I know? All I know is that they're gone. They're... She couldn't say any more as she fell forward, and Abraham had to hold on to her as she bawled into his shirt. Tamil fell to his knees and hands as he trembled. Not Asher. He too strong. He couldn't lose. He couldn't lose. Annie began to cry, clinging to Abraham's leg. Tori ran past them inside. Tori? Mato can't be dead, she screamed. He can't be. It's true. From out of the shadows limped a very bandaged Sarah, and helping her walk was Calypso, who didn't look nearly as bad as the others. Her eyes were downcast and she looked more pale than before. Helping Sarah from the other side was Naomi, whose hair was pulled over her face as her gaze couldn't be seen. Naomi, Tori screamed. Tell me it's a lie. Tell me Mato isn't gone. He can't. Tori, Naomi muttered. I promised we tried to save him. No, shut up. We did everything we could. Oh, I'm sorry, there was too much silver lodged in his body. She screamed again, screeching before sprinting out the door and rocketing into the sky, screaming Mato's names at the top of her lungs. Naomi looked away, tears running down her cheeks too. I figured she wouldn't take that well. She looked up to Mato like a big brother. I'm sorry, Naomi, Abraham admitted. I know Mato didn't like you, but... Naomi started to reason. No, he gave his life for my family, and anything we had against each other is null, Abraham sighed. Naomi gave the faintest shadow of a smile before letting go of Sarah and walking to him swiftly, wrapping her arms around him in a hug. You're a good human, Abraham. Better than a lot of others I can think of. Sarah gave a soft moan and looked up. When she saw Abraham, she screamed and hurried to him, only to stumble and fall crashing to the ground. One of her right legs was broken and only held together with a thin silk casting. Sarah! It's not as bad as it looks. It'll grow back in time. But you're all back, she cried. We missed you. She then saw Tamil and Annie, who had barely moved. Annie, Tamil, come here, both of you. Without a word, they walked to her, and she wrapped her arms around them in a hug, all crying together, though Sarah more from relief than anything else. I'm sorry we couldn't be of more help, David grumbled. Abraham and the others all turned to see David and Jelly standing nearby. Jelly, Naomi grinned. It's been a while. Hi, Fishy. It's Naomi. Thanks for keeping an eye on them. Send my best back to Alex and Christina. David nodded sadly and then glanced at Jelly. Let's go, kid, he sighed. We go now, she asked. I want to play with new people. Jelly, now isn't the time, David hissed. They're mourning. But it's not morning yet. Just get on my back, he snapped, grabbing her and throwing her on top of his back. Jelly nodded sadly and waved goodbye as David ran into the woods back towards the farm. See ya. When they were out of sight, Abraham sat down next to Katie, who was nursing a spot on her tail. The scales had been ripped away, showing some red muscle underneath. Will you be okay? Abraham asked. When I shed my skin, it'll be fine. How was the farm, or whatever it was? I learned a lot there. Some things I'm not sure I was ready to learn. But what happened here? Abraham asked. He wasn't ready to tell her about Solomon being his grandfather. He wasn't sure if the club was ready to stomach that news right now. The things were just happening too fast. Abraham, I am so scared. It's all falling apart, isn't it? What if they kill Asher and Michelle? I don't think they will. They captured them alive for a reason. If we can find a way to get them back, we will, Abraham answered. After all, you escaped them once. Only because they let me, she cried. They won't be so forgiving with a vampire and a werewolf. Let's not worry so much right now. I think we should all rest a while, and when we're ready, we'll find a way to save Asher and Michelle, Abraham answered. He looked at Tamil, Sarah, and Annie, who were all embraced in a sad and pathetic lock of tears and wails. Calypso stood next to Naomi, the two speaking softly, and it almost felt like they were leaning on each other. Having lost Mato and Asher and Michelle, it was hard on two merfolk. Abraham? Who's going to lead us now? Katie asked. I don't know. But let's not write off Michelle yet. We're going to make it out of this. I can feel it, Abraham smiled. Katie hiccuped slightly and then leaned against him, her head nestled next to his cheek, causing him to blush a little. Before he could shove her off in surprise, she was asleep, clearly too exhausted to stay awake. We'll survive, Abraham whispered to her as Katie slept on his shoulder. I'll protect my family, just like Grandpa would have. And that is chapter 45. Not a long one, but one. All right. On to chapter 46. Mato, Asher, and Michelle. They were gone. As the rest of the club slept, this fact circled Abraham's head repeatedly. He sat on the roof of the abandoned tire dealership that acted as the haven for the club and glared at the moon and light glow of the coming morning. He had been able to sleep all night, and his mind kept running through every possibility, every reality, and every equation. What would happen next? What would Michelle do in this situation? What would Asher do? How could he hope to help the club out of this, or even lead them if necessary? Damn it, I don't know what to do, he muttered angrily. His mind drifted back to the farm, to Alex and Christina. They were both leaders like Michelle was. They both knew how to make the right decisions, but how did they do it? If he could have the answer to that question, they wouldn't be so hard, but he wouldn't... What the... From up in the sky, there was a silhouette against the rising sun that seemed to be wavering in the air, skirting left and right and up and down wearily. Abraham stood up, squinting as if trying to get a better look. The figure suddenly came closer to view, and Abraham recognized her right away. He also could tell she wasn't going to land gracefully. With a loud thud, Tori crashed onto the rough, stumbling and lying on her wing, trembling and sobbing. Abraham jumped to his feet and ran to her. "Are you okay?" he asked. Tori shook her head and hugged herself. "He's really gone, isn't he?" "I'm sorry, Tori. I know you two were close," Abraham muttered. "I mean, he could be a real jerk, and he'd sometimes get mean with me when I goofed off, but he was still my friend," she sniffed, rubbing her puffy red eyes. Her feathery hair swayed as a morning wind blew by. The others would wake soon, and Abraham knew that she'd probably need to get some rest after flying around all evening. "Why don't you get some sleep, Tori?" he asked encouragingly. She didn't answer, but stood up and started walking back towards the edge of the roof to drop down and get some rest. He assumed. Abraham just shook his head and looked at the rising sun over the horizon. "What would you do, Michelle?" "Naomi, you can't be serious," Calypso cried. Abraham walked into the shed quietly, noticing that most everyone was up by now. Sarah and Katie were talking in hushed tones, and upon seeing Abraham, both stiffened up a little. "What's going on? Why's Calypso upset?" Abraham asked. "Dunno," Katie shrugged. "They were talking a while ago and suddenly it got heated. Where's Tamil and Annie?" "Tamil went to go be by himself for a while," Sarah explained. "Annie's still asleep." Abraham nodded and stuck his hands in his pockets, looking around. He noticed Annie out cold in the corner, her sleeping face peaceful. Not far was Tori, curled up against the wall, asleep as well, though it was a light sleep. She was twitching and would open her eyes suddenly and then close them again. She must have been more worked up than Abraham realized. "It's my choice to make, Calypso," Naomi snapped back. "It's the wrong choice. It's the only choice there is," she argued back. Abraham turned his attention back to the two merfolk arguing and decided to go investigate, walking past Katie and Sarah, who returned to their whispering. "But what about Tori?" Calypso hissed. "I can't protect her anymore. I'm not Mato." "What's going on?" Abraham asked. Calypso and Naomi both turned to look at him. "Naomi, she wants to go back to the sea," Calypso growled. "I told you, there's nothing left for me up here. I stayed because of Mato and Tori. They needed a leader and someone to help guide them, but Mato's dead, and I can't protect Tori the way he could." "What are you talking about?" Abraham argued. "You're strong enough to take care of yourself. But not both of us," she pointed out. For all his flaws, Mato was a protector. He was tough enough to keep Tori and I safe when things got ugly. With him gone, well, it's just not the same. But you could stay with us, Calypso cried. We could use you in the Monster Club. Naomi shook her head and looked at Abraham out of the corner of her eye. I don't belong with the club. I've always played the role of a leader, and that's Abraham's role right now. I'm not sure I'd handle being a follower. Besides, I miss the ocean. I want to try and find some more of our brothers and sisters of the sea, she replied. But Tori will miss you, Calypso retorted. Of course she will. She's a social creature who requires being with others to feel satisfied, which is why she should join your club, not tag along with me all the time. I'd just make her feel lonely and bored, Naomi explained. But I'll miss you, Calypso finally confessed. Naomi, we've been separated for so long, and to just have you go back to the ocean again after all that's happened. Calypso, this is your family now, Naomi assured her, wrapping her arms around Calypso. You're not that scared, sane little guppy that I used to know. You've grown up. You're confident. You've got a strong and intelligent head on your shoulders, and others who will protect you. Yes, we'll go our separate ways, but you simply don't need me anymore. That's not the point, Calypso cried. You're my friend, Naomi, and friends, they... What, stick together? Naomi finished. You're right, but real friends stay friends even when they can't stay close. You're always going to be my friend, but you have the club, and I need to find my place to call home. And this isn't it. Calypso didn't respond, but just quickly hugged Naomi once more. Naomi! Before she could finish, Tori, from seemingly out of the blue, rocketed at Naomi and hugged her tightly, tears flowing down her cheeks. Oh, don't you try to stop me now too, Tori. You know I can't keep you safe. I know, but I don't need to be kept safe. I'm going to really miss you. You bird brain. Naomi, despite her tough demeanor, was crying too as she hugged Tori back, and the two held on for a few moments before Naomi finally let her go. You need to take care of yourself, Tori. She finally shot a look at Abraham and gave him a smile. Like I said, you're not bad, Abraham. For a human, anyway. Can't you just say goodbye? Abraham asked, trying not to choke up. Just take care of Calypso and Tori for me. I'm counting on you. She laughed as she started to walk away towards the east, where she'd find the ocean eventually. Calypso hung her head and brushed the hair out of her eyes. First Asher and Michelle, now Naomi's gone too? We're going to get Asher and Michelle back, Abraham replied. I know you're trying to cheer us up, but Abraham, if they've kidnapped Asher and Michelle, there's no way they'll show mercy. Besides, we don't know where they've been taken, Calypso pointed out. I do, though, Katie announced, slithering to them. You two okay? Abraham asked. We will be, once we find our friends again, Sarah responded. Look, Katie interrupted, I remember where the Dawnbringers' hideout is. I'm willing to bet that's where they were taken. But it's really hard to get in. They've got a bunch of armed soldiers, and it's way too dangerous. If we had Asher, then maybe we could bust in, but we're not going there yet, Abraham snapped. Our first priority is getting ourselves patched up and back to normal. We'll stay here for now, and once everyone's ready, then we'll talk about how to save Asher and Michelle. What do you want us to do for now? Calypso asked. Abraham closed his eyes and thought back to Asher and Michelle. They'd both put their trust in him. He had to consider how they'd handle this, how they would do it. What would his grandpa have done? Okay, we'll do this one step at a time. Sarah, go set up your tripwires around the area to reestablish a defensive perimeter. Katie, you go wake up Annie and get her cleaned up. I'm going to want her help later. Right. Sarah scurried off to get the tripwire set up, and Katie, without a word, hurried back inside to find Annie. What can I do? Abraham turned to Tori, who, though still teary-eyed, was now facing him with determination. I want to help. Find Tamil, he instructed. Get a bird's eye view and get Tamil. He's sulked enough. He and Calypso are going to go together to get some provisions from the store, and I need him back here to do that. I'm on it! Tori gave a hasty salute and jumped into the air, taking flight and soaring away. Calypso just gave a panicked chuckle and looked at Abraham. For a moment, you sounded like Michelle, she giggled. I'm not like her, or Asher, Abraham shrugged. I'm just filling in. Michelle believed in you, you know. She trusted you. And it takes a lot to earn her trust. Calypso, there's something y'all don't know, Abraham whispered. I wasn't sure if I should tell everyone yet, but it's about Solomon. What about him? She asked. He might have been my grandfather. Calypso didn't flinch or gasp. She simply stared a moment and then exhaled deeply, looking back at the forest where the sun was now breaking the trees, blinding them both and forcing them to squint. "That makes sense," she mumbled. "Does it?" Abraham asked, surprised by her lack of shock. "You're a lot like him. Patient, friendly, trusting. All good qualities. I guess maybe we all kind of knew." "How could you know?" Abraham asked. "I think it was when we all went to the beach," she answered. "You took charge without being asked or being expected to. You showed genuine concern for Michelle, Asher, and Sarah. You connected with Katie faster than anyone else. We all sort of see him in how you were then. I mean, none of us thought you were his grandson, but if that's true, then it really isn't all that surprising." "It shocked me, that's for sure," Abraham muttered. "But whether it's true or not, you're still Abraham. That's not going to change." "Nah, probably not." Abraham gave a small smile and crossed his arms. "Calypso, could I what?" "It's nothing. It'd be great if we could get a few buckets of fresh water. I imagine everyone would need a washing up." "We might all need to make a trip to the lake later, but I can get the buckets for drinking," she offered. "Thanks. What are you going to do?" "I don't know," Abraham answered. "I'd recommend getting some rest yourself," she offered. "No need to overstress yourself." Abraham hadn't even realized just how worn out he felt after all that stress and all that had happened. He gave a slow nod and smiled. "I'll do that in a minute," he answered. "I'd just like to watch the sun rise a little longer." "Why?" "Gives me hope." And that was chapter 46 of Monster Club. Boy, howdy. Things just keep getting crazy. All right, that just leaves the next and last story of the evening, Reanimated. Oh boy. Hope you guys have been enjoying tonight's stories. I've been having fun. For the most part, anyway. Okay, there we go. All right. Kind of quiet in chat, but that's fine. All right. So for those who don't remember this story, it was my attempt at writing a zombie story. It will never be finished. I wrote it when I was friends with Mika, who helped me and inspired me and worked with the story. She was the one who drew this art you're looking at. After we stopped being friends and broke contact, I lost any desire to work on this story. So, I will read it to you, but don't ask me to finish it. The only way I'd ever finish this is if Hannah contacted me and said that she'd like to help me finish it. And in that case, I would just be starting over. All right, let's do it. Reanimated Chapter 3. Let's do it. Gabriel and Max hurried out into the hallway, prepared for anything. The silent stench of the corpses was detectable. There were no moving corpses, though, and Max was thankful for that. The pipe in her hand was slightly bent from when she'd swung it at the first zombie. And when she wasn't sure how much damage it would do before being a useless piece of dead weight, she needed something like Gabriel's sword. "Where did you get that sword?" she asked. "Stole it," Gabriel answered. Max gave him a disappointed look, and Gabriel rolled his eyes. "Get over it," he muttered. "I was hiding out in an antique store when the infection started, so I grabbed the first weapon that I could." Max nodded, understanding him. "All right, sorry, I didn't mean to sound, "It's fine," Gabriel whispered back. "Now, if your mom is still here and is still alive, where would be the best place for her to hide out?" Max thought hard about the hospital and all the heavy protected places. "There's the autopsy basement, and then work our way up. Stick close to me." Max nodded and moved quickly to Gabriel's side. The hospital was deathly quiet. No sound could be heard other than their own footsteps. Just as they were rounding a corner, Gabriel held out a hand and pointed at the floor. Slumped in the corner was a dead body wearing a police officer's uniform. Stuck in his hand was a pistol. "Lose the pipe and take that," Gabriel whispered. "But he's not going to need it," Gabriel snapped. "Now get it." Max prepared to bring up another argument, but soon came to the conclusion that it wasn't worth it. She hurried to the body and shakily pulled the pistol out of the cop's hand. She pulled out the magazine to see that it still had some bullets left in it. Gabriel walked behind her and placed his foot on the cop's head, kicking him over, showing his back. "What are you doing?" Max asked. Gabriel ignored her and reached into his pockets and holders. He then pulled out 2 spare magazines full of bullets. "Here, hold on to these." He handed them to Max, then walked past her, keeping his blade at the ready. Max stuck them in the coat pocket and hurried after Gabriel. "Which way to the basement?" Gabriel asked. Max stepped in front of him and looked around. She pointed to the stairs not far off and nodded to them. "It's down those stairs," Max said. Gabriel nodded and hurried to the stairs. Max followed and carefully went down with him. When they got to the bottom, the floor was almost completely dark. There was no power and no window to feed in light. Gabriel held out his hand to stop Max. "We're at a disadvantage here. We can't see what's in there, but they can smell us if they see us in there. If we go down there," Gabriel whispered. "We need to get them into the light. Fire your gun into the hallway." Max hesitated for a moment as she never used a gun before. However, she could guess how to at least fire it. She held out her arm and fired once into the hallway. The kick of the gun caused her arm to fly backwards. They heard the bullet fly around the room and crash into something hard. There was the slightest sound of movement, and Gabriel began to sweat. "There's a group of them." "How do you—" Max began to ask, but before she could finish, Gabriel grabbed her arm and yanked her back up the stairs. As they did, Max got a short glimpse into what was coming out of the basement hall, and she nearly screamed at the sight of at least 10 lumbering zombies, covered in blood and wounds, limping and crawling their way into the light towards the stairs. "Shoot them!" Gabriel shouted. Max quickly aimed her gun and began to fire. The first round missed all the zombies. The second only grazed one's hip, and the last one hit him in the shoulder, but they kept coming. "It's not working!" Max cried. "Calm down," Gabriel snarled. "Take your time and aim for their goddamn heads." Max tried to calm herself and tried her hardest to push back the fear and the sounds of the zombies. She looked through the sight of her gun and fired again. This time the bullet hit the zombie's lower jaw and it stumbled back but didn't die. "I got it!" "Great, I'll give you a medal later," Gabriel snapped. He stepped back and swung his sword at the nearest one, cleaving its head from its body. "But keep shooting!" Max nodded and began firing. As she fired, she began to get the hang of the pistol in her hand. The kick didn't bother her as much as it did, and her accuracy was getting better. By the time her magazine had run dry, at least 4 of the zombies were laying dead on the stairs, holes in their heads. Gabriel was on a roll as well. He wielded his sword viciously, cutting down corpse after corpse. He easily slashed across one of the zombies' faces, causing it to crash to the ground. With a kick, he knocked one of the last zombies into its comrades, forcing them to fall down the stairs, giving off desperate moans and growls. Gabriel turned and grabbed Max's arm, yanking her down the stairs and past the 3 disoriented zombies. "Let's move!" he spat. They ran fast down the dark hallway, trying not to think about what they could possibly be stepping on or over. There was a large double door at the far end of the hallway. Max's eyes brightened at the sight of it. "That's the autopsy room," Max cried. Gabriel ran to the door and kicked it open. "Yo, anyone in here?" Gabriel shouted. There was no response. Max and Gabriel looked around the empty room, searching for any sign of life, but nothing was moving or out of place in the room, at least so it seemed. "She's not here," Max moaned. "Yeah, looks like the zombies overran this place early on. So the survivors avoided this place," Gabriel muttered. "You seem to know a bit about these zombies," Max pointed out. "Yeah, well, it's not like this is the first zombie-infested building I've been in today," Gabriel replied. "We're killing time, though. We need to find that last office you were talking about." Max nodded her agreement and looked back at the door. "It's near the top of the building. The doors are heavily fortified, so it'd be a safe place to hide out," Max explained. "Then that's our best bet," Gabriel said. Gabriel suddenly looked to see that 3 last zombies were slowly making their way to them. "Now'd be a good time to work on that accuracy of yours. Take them out," Gabriel said, stepping back. Max noticed the 3 zombies and reloaded her pistol. "Take your time," Gabriel whispered. Max stared down the sight of her pistol and tried to steady her shaking hand. Max focused on the zombie's dead, pale eyes. There was a moment where she felt a hint of remorse, a hint of regret and sadness in her heart. This man looked like one of the custodians. She had seen him once or twice in the hospital when she visited her mom. She never talked to him, but she had nothing against him. Her hand started shaking. "Max," Gabriel whispered. "Max, he's not human." His voice was not mean or hurtful. It was soft and understanding. He was speaking kindly and encouragingly, but with a small shimmer of urgency. "He didn't choose this fate, Max. The best thing you can do for him now is to put an end to his suffering." Gabriel, you don't have time to second-guess yourself, Gabriel uttered forcefully now. If you can't be prepared to kill, then you won't survive. As Max listened, Gabriel's voice sounded a little off, like he wasn't even talking to her anymore, but rather speaking to himself. She glanced back at him, and there was a look on his face that was both furious and unbelievably sad. Sometimes it's harder to live than it is to die. What? Max asked. Gabriel shook his head angrily as if trying to let go of his own thoughts. If this is too much for you, I'll do it, Gabriel said. Max looked back at the zombie and thought about what Gabriel had said. He's not human anymore. If you can't be prepared to kill, then you won't survive. Max pulled the trigger. The bullet went through the zombie's forehead and the former custodian fell to the ground. As he fell, Max let out a long sigh that she didn't know that she'd been holding. She'd done it. She killed him. Why did she feel such accomplishment and such regret at the same time? There was a horrid feeling in her stomach that she couldn't shake. He's dead, Max whispered. You're not done, Gabriel muttered. Do it again. Quickly. There are 2 more. Give me a minute, Max said, raising her pistol again. Shoot now, Gabriel barked. Max reacted on instinct and she fired. The second zombie fell with a thud. Max felt less recoil from the gun and in her stomach. Why was it not so hard the second time? 1 more, Gabriel whispered. Put her down. Max raised her pistol one more time to face the dead nurse who was now only a few yards away. This time there was hardly any hesitation at all. She fired and the nurse fell to the ground, a hole in her eye. Much better, Gabriel said, patting her shoulder. Max shrugged his hand away. Give me a moment, please, Max whispered. Her hands were trembling and her eyes were watering. Why had it felt so easy? The first one had been hard, and she had to have encouragement just to get the job done, but then it got easier and easier. Now it was like all that weight had caught up. Killing's a hard thing to do, Gabriel said darkly. You make it sound so easy, like it was second nature to you. How do you do that? What are you, a sociopath, a murderer? Gabriel fell silent and looked away. Max suddenly realized that she'd gone too far and turned back to him. I'm sorry, that was unfair. It's fine, he answered. You need to understand, Max, that you're a survivor now, just like me. The only difference is that I've been doing it since I was 10 years old. He stepped around her and leaned against the wall. To survive, sometimes you need to do things that you regret. Max listened to him and bowed her head. I'm sorry for what I said. I know you're trying to help me. I'm just not used to this feeling. Pray that you don't get used to it. Because once you're used to it, you know you're not human anymore. Well, what about you? Gabriel picked up his sword and sighed. It never gets easier. The look on his face made Max realize that Gabriel was just as human as she was, that he too was suffering. She walked to him, the only friend she had at this point. Let's go see if your mom's upstairs. Max reloaded her gun and walked beside Gabriel back up the stairs away from the basement. Sorry that I chickened out earlier, Max giggled, trying to lighten the mood. Don't be so hard on yourself, he laughed. I'm just from the opposite side of the tracks. 2 totally different worlds. Max smiled and licked at her gun and shot a glance at him. No difference now, is there? Max asked. No, none at all. And that was chapter 3. Pretty easy, pretty simple. Let me take a drink and I'll read the last chapter. All right, chapter 4. Gabriel followed Max up the stairs leading to the upper floors of the hospital. To their surprise, they ran into very few zombies, but plenty of dead bodies. The lack of power and light made things even more frightening and eerie as they made their way upwards to the 3rd floor. Once they came across a bolted shut door with a padlock on it. There was a faint groaning sound coming from within, and they elected to avoid the room and go on further. We're not far now, Max announced. The dean's office is just a little further. I sure hope so. This place is getting more and more unnerving, Gabriel growled. Suddenly Gabriel stopped in his tracks. He grabbed Max's hood and yanked her backwards to him. What the? Shut up, Gabriel snapped. Listen. Max fell silent and listened carefully. At first there was nothing but empty silence. But then there was another sound. The sound of chewing and biting. Something was eating rather noisily. Max whimpered as she pieced together what she was listening to. Oh, God, what are we going to... I said shut up, Gabriel retorted. They hear us and they'll be eating us next. Max calmed her breathing and nodded.
Okay, I'm fine. I'm fine, Max whispered. So what do we do?
Depends. How far are we from the office? Gabriel asked. Max pointed up the hallway to a large pair of glass double doors.
Those doors lead into a hallway, and that hallway leads to the office, she said.
Gabriel moved up the steps and looked down the hallway to see the zombies. He pulled his head back quickly and winced. All right. We're going to make a run for it. If we're lucky, the zombies will be too interested in their lunch to notice us. Don't make a sound, and don't look at them.
I'll try, Max agreed.
All right. Nice. Nice and easy now. Gabriel took a cautious step out and began to hurry across the hall, moving silently and carefully. Max followed, and she tried not to look, but her curiosity was outweighing her fear. She shot a glance to her right and saw what the zombies were doing. She stifled a scream. There were at least 3 corpses on the ground and 5 zombies on top of them, biting and tearing into the blood and flesh greedily. It was a gruesome sight that Max didn't want to think of or consider. Max, move! Gabriel hissed. It was too late. The nearest zombie looked up and saw Max. With a low groan, it climbed to its feet. Move! Gabriel roared. He grabbed Max's hand and pulled her after him towards the office. They didn't look back as they heard the sound of the other zombies moving as well. They were slow, but they were mobile now. Gabriel didn't slow down as they got near to the doors. With a shove, the doors flew open. He pulled Max in and closed the doors behind him. There was a chair next to the doors. He kicked it to the double doors and propped it against the handles.
That won't hold forever, Max noted.
Hopefully won't be here that long, Gabriel answered. Let's get your mom now, please. Max took Gabriel down the hallway as the small horde of zombies began shoving and banging against the doors that they had barricaded. They came to a small wooden reinforced door at the end of that hall, and Max touched it.
This is it.
Gabriel grabbed the handle and shook it. Hey! If anyone's in there, open up! Gabriel shouted. There was no response. Answer me, damn it! The sound of glass shattering caused Gabriel to turn and see that the zombies were breaking through, growling and roaring hungrily. Gabriel banged his fist against the door. Open up! We're running out of time! Max shoved Gabriel aside and banged on the door.
Mom, if you're in there, it's me! It's Max! Open the door!
There was again silence, but this time something else happened. The faintest voice whispered, It's unlocked, Max. Come in. There was a click and Max felt the doorknob move.
Gabriel, come on!
Max cried, pulling him in. Gabriel rushed inside and shoved the door closed. When they walked in, Max noticed that the dean's office looked ruined. There was blood on some of the walls and desks, and the full wall window was splattered with red. But Max looked around to see where her mom was.
Mom?
She's not here, girl. Max went around and screamed. Laying on the floor was a man who was balding. He had gray hair and a white lab coat. His glasses were broken and his body was red with blood. There was a large chunk of his arm missing. It was pooling sick red blood. He was hunched over in pain and his face was pale.
Dr. Edwards!
Max cried, falling down beside him. Dr. Edwards had been a good friend of Max, always giving her a lollipop when she came to visit. He was a sweet man, and seeing him like this was horribly painful. The doctor shook his head and held out a good hand to keep her back. Don't come any closer. Max stepped aside.
Why?
You were bitten, weren't you? Gabriel asked darkly. The doctor nodded and smiled. I was careless. Forgive me, he said. Max shook her head and ran to him, hugging him tight.
No, please tell me it's not real.
As she hugged him, tears rolled down her face, and the doctor struggled to push her off him. Max, stop it, he pleaded. I don't have much time, and I have a lot I need to tell you. You have to listen to me. Max moved away from him, rubbing her eyes. He breathed heavily and tried to collect himself. Listen closely. I need you to do me a favor, he said. I want you to look on my office desk over there. There's a vial of light blue liquid. Max turned and saw the small vial, lifting it up.
This one? What is it?
That is the vaccine. Both Max and Gabriel gasped in shock at what Max was holding and at what the doctor had said. The doctor breathed in and smiled. It's all we had time to make with the samples that we had. It's good for 1 dose.
Then we'll give it to you, Max said.
No, he shouted. Max stepped away. I've already been bitten. It won't work on someone who's already infected. It can only prevent someone who is healthy from getting infected. Besides, I'm not worth it. I want you to take it out of the city. Take it to the military checkpoints outside the borders. They can replicate it and produce it on a mass scale. They can use it to save the city and prevent this disaster from ever happening again. Max and Gabriel just watched him for a moment. Please, Max, you have to do this.
I mean, I'll try, but...
The doctor turned to look at Gabriel. You helped her get here, didn't you? Will you please get her out of the city? Gabriel nodded. Yeah, I can do that, Gabriel said. The doctor smiled, but then gasped in pain again as his body shook violently. Gabriel made a move to draw his sword, but the doctor soon regained control again. The door to the office suddenly began to shudder. The zombies had made it to the office door and were trying to force their way in. The doctor glared at the door and shook his head. It's getting worse. I'm running out of time. He looked up at Max sadly. Don't worry about me. I'll keep them busy while you two get away through the secretary door behind you. He indicated a side door to his office. Go through there. Get out of the hospital. Find a way out of the city. You're the last chance we have.
Why? Max demanded. Can't the military just come in and...
It's not that simple, Gabriel interjected. Your friend is right, the doctor said darkly. In the event of a Class 3 zombie outbreak, chemical weapons will be released in the area of infection to thin out the infection. And after that, the military will move in and perform a sweep and clean assault. The only reason it hasn't happened yet is because of that vaccine. The doctor looked at the vial proudly. They've given us 2 weeks to get the vial out of the city. But I was bitten before I even made it out of my office.
Dr. Edwards, we can't just leave you.
The door shook again and Gabriel pulled out his sword. You must. He reached up and took Max's hand. Max, your mother is alive. Max paused.
She is?
I encouraged her to evacuate early on, to get you. I assured her I would come for you when I made my escape. She's outside the city and safe. I'm sure of it. Tell her I'm sorry. He finally turned to Gabriel. What's your name, young man? Gabriel, he answered. Like the angel. Max could certainly use one right now. Promise me you'll keep her safe, Edwards pleaded. Gabriel nodded. I'll do what I can. Dr. Edwards opened his mouth to thank him and suddenly began coughing furiously. His eyes were fogging over. He probably had minutes left. I have one last request. He didn't continue, but gave a depressed and desperate look at Gabriel. Max, look away, Gabriel ordered. Max stared between the two and shook her head. No, Gabriel, don't! Please don't! It's my choice, Max, Dr. Edwards barked back, forcing Max to fall silent. Let me die a man, not a monster. Max opened her mouth emptily to argue, but the look on his face was firm. She burst into tears and ran to the corner of the room looking away, while Gabriel raised his sword. You know, I'm not really good at giving last rites or anything, Gabriel warned. I know. What's your name, anyway? Gabriel demanded. My name is Dr. Theodore Edwards, he said proudly. Do you have a family? Gabriel asked. I was a husband and a father of 2 children. My wife died 2 years ago, and my children live away from here, very far away, he said desperately. The pounding was louder now. The door was shaking. More zombies had joined the horde, and the door was creaking. All right, Dr. Theodore Edwards. You died for the sake of others, and that's pretty cool, Gabriel said. It was clear he was trying his best to sound professional, and though he was being nice, he was rushing a little. He raised his sword over his head. May you rest in peace. He brought the sword down. In one fluid motion, steel cut through air and sliced through flesh and bone. Dr. Theodore Edwards died with a smile on his face and a hopeful glint in his foggy eyes. Gabriel stood over the body and cleaned his sword. Let's get out of here, Max. There was no answer. Gabriel turned to face her. Hey, Max. Max was still standing in the corner. Max, I'm sorry.
It's okay, Gabriel, she said.
No, it's not, Gabriel answered.
It's what he wanted,
Max said forcefully, turning seriously. She had dried off her tears and looked more serious than before. She seemed to have gotten over it.
He was a good man, and I know that this is better for him. I don't think I could stand to see him end up like those things outside.
Max gave a weak smile and loaded her gun.
Besides...
What?
Mom is waiting for me. I can't stand around crying all day.
Gabriel nodded and gave a smirk. That's pretty mature of you, Gabriel laughed. Max stashed her gun in her belt and went to the door.
I didn't ask your opinion, she laughed. Now let's go.
Gabriel hurried to her side and pushed open the back door. Max followed him out and into the secretary's office towards the hallway. They both blocked out the sound of the growling and roaring zombies who were now breaking into the office.
So where do we go from here? She asked.
We need to find a working radio and find out when and where the next emergency exit will open, Gabriel answered. If we can, we may also want to get word to the outside that we have the vaccine so we can postpone the chemical counterattack.
Got any idea of how we're going to do that? Max asked.
If you haven't noticed, Max, I'm kind of making this up as I'm going along, Gabriel admitted.
Well, that's encouraging,
Max laughed. All right, and that
was chapter 4. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our reading stream for tonight. We've read everything, and it is just about that time to call it quits. Before we go, I want to make a few very short announcements to you guys. The first one is that I probably will not be doing a reading stream this next Monday. So next week, when I would normally do a reading stream, probably won't happen. I will be out of town for most of the weekend to hang out with a friend of mine, so I will not be in town to work on any writing or editing to fix it up. So we probably will have to skip next Monday. We'll replace it with another stream or something like that. So do not expect it. We might, but do not expect it. Tomorrow, I may do another stream. We may do another Dead by Daylight stream since everyone seemed to really enjoy that, or we may do something else like Batman. We'll just have to see what happens. But I hope you guys have enjoyed the story reading. Tomoki's been a lot of fun. Actually, you know what's funny? I didn't even do my normal poll where I ask you guys what you guys are most excited for. I feel silly for that now, but hey, you know what? I'm happy that you guys got to hear it. So let me know down in the comments or in chat before I log off which story was your favorite to hear tonight. Which one you were most excited to hear? Was it Tomoki? Was it Reanimated? Was it Monster Club? Was it Helping Hands? Which one did you guys enjoy the most? I would really love to hear your thoughts. Thank you guys so much for doing this with me. I know that it's not the most exciting stream and we don't get the most views from it, but sharing stories with you guys really is a lot of fun. So thank you guys for being here. And as always, oh, and of course, thank you, Aaron, Jay, and Hannah for being here. It means a lot to me. All right, well, I think that's about it. Thank you guys so much. And as always, I will see you in my next video. Take care. you